Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere.
Welcome everybody back to the Pursuit Pod. I'm Calvin Lymper. I'm your host, and it's been a wild week of sports. Super Bowl matchup is now set. Not a lot going on in basketball, really. Trade deadline's coming up. Olympic freeze is coming up soon for hockey. And it's been up and down for Philly sports. So, let's just get right into it with the Roundball Rock section for this week. So, the biggest, topic in news this week would be NBA insider Mark Spears stated that he believes that Giannis Antetokounmpo played his last game in a Bucks uniform. And he just says that, and this has really been like the notion of most news outlets, that the Bucks have more to gain by trading Giannis than by playing him. Right now he's sidelined with a calf injury, and he's going to be out until probably after the trade deadline. So it might be best for them to, he hasn't been happy with the team. There was already talks about how he might be going to New York, or he might this or that, the three teams that are really looking at him right now, at least they've held off any other big moves to try and take a swing at Giannis, would be the Knicks, the Heat, and the Warriors, in case of this rift continuing. And you kind of saw it from Giannis saying that his teammates were selfish and they're kind of soft after they lost to the Thunder by like 20 points. They lost to the Sixers last night without Giannis. And they're in 11th place right now. I think they're tied for 11th with the Hornets right now. But, Giannis already booed Milwaukee fans back. You saw him hit the ground after a foul, after he missed a shot, and the Milwaukee fans were booing, and he was like, boo. You could see him giving the thumbs down, and it wasn't really a good scene there in Milwaukee. And it's just, there's been a lot of talk about there was an ESPN article talking about how Giannis would never say that he wants to get traded. He's too humble to do that. He literally said that there will never be a time that he'll outright say, I want to trade from here. And, there's already the whole thing about how successful is he with the Bucks right now, and how successful have the Bucks been, especially that 1 year when they were the 1 seed and they lost to Jimmy Butler and the Heat. And the question is just, how much more success can Giannis bring them? Especially because he was having an MVP level season to, begin the year, and he was, even with the Bucks, he really is their MVP. He's their most valuable player. But Terrell Smith of the Men's Journal brought up another good point, saying that the Bucks should not trade Giannis. Saying that right now at the trade deadline, there's no use in it. That really, this upcoming summer in the offseason, with a good free agency pool, like LeBron's going to be potentially there if he doesn't get traded beforehand. There's questions about that. Beal, James Harden, Kristaps Porzingis, maybe even more leeway for a Ja or AD trade, which is kind of decreased in value due to their subsequent injuries, or even a Jimmy Butler trade coming up. The Bucks just have more to gain in the offseason and more to gain this summer than they would at all trying to force a trade to happen at the deadline. So it's definitely going to be a huge thing to watch out for about if, will the Bucks take their chance? Will they come in and try to force a trade for Giannis? What would a Giannis deal even look like? How valued is he? Because he's a franchise guy. You add him to any team, he's their number one option. And there's just a lot of questions. I know WIP was talking about a few weeks back, they would trade VJ Edgecombe and they would trade Paul George and someone else to get Giannis. And it's really just, it reminds me of those Kevin Durant trade talks from 3 years ago. I remember being on the beach and I seeing my phone and people were saying that it was oh, would you trade Tyrese Maxey and I think it was Buddy Hield and someone else at that time for Giannis. And knowing the player that Maxey has become, it would have been a no. But with that, or sorry, it wasn't for Giannis, it was for KD. But for a player like KD to team up with Embiid back then would have been crazy. It would have been crazy. And that would have been a risk worth taking. right now it's just, I don't know. And I mean, you look at the numbers. Again, I said Giannis is their MVP. He's the most valuable player. He's maybe arguably the greatest player in Milwaukee history right now. Bucks are negative 11.2 per 100 possessions when he's off the court. And if they get rid of him, it would be a commitment for the tank. Because here's some interesting information. They right now they own the bad part of the 2026 pick swap between them and New Orleans. But the Bucks could somehow leap up, get the first and second overall picks if both picks have high lottery odds. So maybe there's the incentive there that we could get a Darren Peterson, we can get an AJ DeBonsa right there, and we could just retool immediately. We have Kuzma, Miles Turner's going to be here for a little bit longer, so there's still that little, I guess, just discussion of we could really just turn around Milwaukee immediately if we get rid of Giannis. And as much as getting rid of him would be a huge hit to us, there's always the chance that we could just rebuild right in the draft, especially with our team not being good, having low record and having high lottery odds, and there's just maybe the picks that we own could turn into something. So it's a gamble. It's a gamble for the Bucks, and my thinking is that Giannis doesn't get traded. I think that he just rides out the rest of the year. And, I mean, I just don't think there's a lot of value on the market right now to go get him. I think any deal that could have happened would have happened already. I mean, again, unless the Knicks really go all in for it, and that would probably be a cat trade, and that would be nerve-wracking in the East, especially because that would probably make, the Knicks probably the best team there. But we'll have to wait and see, because the fact they haven't done anything yet leads me to believe that they won't do anything upcoming. Lastly, I want to talk about just this whole trend of G League players going back to the NBA. And I saw a story when I was walking back from class about Dink Pate, who he's only 19 years old, and he's played in the G League for a few years. He was a part of the Ignite program, went to the G League instead of college. And I mean, here's the argument that Pate is the usual age for a rookie in the NBA, and how much experience does he really have? It's not the most far-fetched idea. And obviously there's the guy at Baylor that went back to Baylor after really being drafted. He didn't play any NBA competition, but he's back. And I'm someone who's very anti-NIL. I think that the prospect of playing players is a really good idea. I just think that, especially like when it comes to like draft eligibility, and I talked about this kind of in my Clemson Corner section last week about how can you just start trading guys in college mid-season if your season's not going well? Can they just leave and get money from another college for the remaining like 7 games of the college football season? Same thing with basketball here. Like, I get Pate has really just a lack of pro sports experience in general, but he still played games in the G League. I think that the fact that you're drafted in the NBA, first of all, for the guy from Baylor, if you're drafted in the NBA, you shouldn't be able to get back to college. You've made NBA money, even if you didn't play any games. And even for G League, the G League is a pro league, in my opinion. And I mean, there's the whole conversation of like, oh, these guys played in the European leagues and they're playing in college. I don't even know if that should be a thing. I really have to delve into it a little more. That's going to require a little more research from me. But that's just kind of my thoughts, like, I guess, to start out in that conversation. Like, can you really allow just pro players in general to join an amateur league? I don't think so. But again, maybe I don't have the best research to talk about like European guys. Maybe that's something I have to go more in depth in next week or just in the coming podcasts, and maybe I'll make my own assumption there. But right now, I don't think Dink Pate should be able to go to Kentucky, because right now that's the rumor. I think that he's a G League player. Maybe he's not NBA ready talent, but not everyone could be NBA ready talent. I don't think that you should be able to take away a roster spot from a guy that's like my age and not let him play. I just think that's corrupt. I don't think that should be a thing. And I think that I don't trust that. And I don't like the transformation that NIL has had in any facet of college sports, but especially this whole debacle with the NBA draft and basketball. To continue on, and I know that was probably the shortest basketball segment we've ever had on the pod so far, but I want to delve into some championship round reactions. And I mean, I would go on a limb and say that I made 2 perfect reactions, or I guess 2 perfect predictions here for the championship round. So to go back to my predictions last week, I said Patriots win 17 to Broncos 13. And I talked about how May has taken a lot of sacks, that, Stidham's going to come in, and the Broncos really just need to be mistake-free. And honestly, they were for the most part. That first drive by Stidham looked amazing, and I thought the Broncos were going to just cruise the Super Bowl. But they just got nothing going for them at the end of that. And the Patriots being 0-4 Denver all time, that was going to break at some point, especially with these conditions and the fact that it's just the snow. Like, the game, there was nothing going on in this game at all. It was really just an abysmal game overall, really lackluster. It was a defensive battle, but it wasn't even like a fun one. And I mean, the Pats defense is great, but the fact that you see, like, the game is like, tied 7-7, 10-7, maybe by like the beginning of the fourth, and then the snow comes and neither team can do anything. It's just like, why didn't you just end the game at halftime at that point? And I mean, the Broncos, they missed, 3 kicks? Willets missed 3, I believe. Which, again, it could be the wind, could be the weather, could be whatever, but it really is just a collapse from the Broncos. And I know people have been saying that you shouldn't overreact to these games and say that the AFC Championship was just a third-place game, and that really the Seahawks-Rams was the Super Bowl, but it just was. It just was, because none of these AFC teams looked like powerful at all. And none of them looked like they could actually go out and win the Super Bowl, especially not against the Seahawks or Rams. So I would say my biggest notes for this AFC game was that the Pats' offense is still abysmal. Will Campbell is still not doing good for the Patriots, and I know he's young. I don't want to hate on him, especially with the whole narrative with him. But I mean, and they got like Kayshon Boutte. He just couldn't beat the defensive pressure. You got Stephon Diggs saying, "They said I was washed," when he had 5 receptions for 17 yards. Drake May has just kind of lost his MVP touch, especially in the level of ball placement. This just seemed like kind of like a high school game to me. There wasn't really anything going on here. And I mean, Stidham was crushed by the defense, and this definitely killed him, just the stakes of this game, and also just the fact that, maybe in a normal game he has that kind of fourth quarter drive and he ends up getting something going for the Broncos. But definitely the snow coming in and just that whole thing, it just ruined it. And I mean, I don't want to blame Stidham because he has been vital, at least in that game, and he was vital to the hopes for Broncos, but like, that's just a bad position for him to be thrown into. It's different if you played the entire playoffs so far, and then with the snow coming in and both teams just kind of sucking all around, it just was not the most fun game to watch, and it was kind of predictable one. The moment like the second half started, and you just kind of realized that the Broncos, they're just no team is going to score here. And so I would say that was, I don't know, maybe not a near perfect prediction by me, but I just think that this could have been a more fun game. Maybe it was just the weather ended up messing things up, but we got to talk about this Seahawks-Rams game. If anything, Seahawks win 31, Rams 27 at Lumen Field. And man, what a game. It was just an incredible game all around. Just both teams firing on all cylinders. But I will say that the Rams defense probably cost that amazing Rams offense Super Bowl. But at the same time, Sean McVay played it very easy, played it very soft in this NFC Championship game. Probably his worst play calling, decision-making playoffs in his entire career so far as the Rams head coach. I mean, this team really could, with just a little better decisions, maybe challenging that Cooper Kupp catch or not using as many timeouts early in the game. It's just, this was their Achilles heel. And like, Sean McVay just kind of looked out of touch here. And I mean, he's going to be back. He's going to be on the Rams for like 30 years. So he's going to win more and more Super Bowls. I don't have any worry about that. But man, I mean, again, Sam Darnold is legit. And JSN balled out, obviously. I mean, there was that amazing clip of Sam Darnold. He redid the Matt Stafford no-look pass, but he just kind of like threw it. And then JSN comes in with a flying hand, gets that catch. But, I mean, Sam Darnold, we got to talk about him because he outplayed MVP Matt Stafford. He had a flawless game. Last week I talked about how the Seahawks, the way they lose is, and even just the Rams, Seahawks in general, the first team to make a mistake, the first team to have a flaw in their offense is the team that's going to lose. And I mean, Seattle had no turnovers. They played a flawless game, in my opinion. And even there was the miscues on the Rams special team as well with that botched punt, like he tried to catch the punt and then it just missed his hands and the Seattle just ran all over it. So there was that, but the Rams offense it deserved better. They were just insane this year. And I mean, Seattle's just the most well-rounded team in the NFL, I would say. Great coaching, great core. They have the best receiver in the game, at least maybe not in the entire NFL, but just at this certain point, at this certain momentum that they have. Sam Darnold actually looks like low-key a championship potential quarterback. So his ring is not going to be in muck, I guess. But it was just the game that I kind of expected from the Seahawks. And again, high-scoring game. It's been a tight series all year. It was tight to the very end. There was that call where Puka Nacua was literally like an inch inbound, and that's what ended the game. That's like the definition of the Seahawks-Rams series all year, and it lived up to the expectations. And both teams would have clobbered the Patriots in the Super Bowl, or even the Broncos. So I'll give you my real Super Bowl prediction next week, just because we have this week of fluff and awards and stuff. So, and I'm not going to give you any Pro Bowl predictions. I don't even know if I'm going to watch the Pro Bowl game, but like my favorite thing about the Pro Bowl was probably the accuracy, precision passing competitions. I like to rewatch those from time to time on YouTube. I like to watch the greatest catch. I like to watch the agility skills contest. I always like the games that come with the Pro Bowl, and I almost wish that they should just focus it on that. To me, like the Pro Bowl is just, it's impossible to make that a real thing. It's not like the NBA All-Star game where you won't get injured in the All-Star game really, because you can play softer defense. But even like the years that they played hard defense, or even like when they had like the fourth quarter that was really intense and actually was like great basketball, it's just tough because the Pro Bowl, it's a football. It's going to be a hard hitting game. Again, there's that whole joke about how there's no penalties in the Pro Bowl, or like the one time they did call a penalty, he was like, yes, there are penalties in the Pro Bowl, and he called like the false start. But it's just like, I don't know how possible it is to make the Pro Bowl a thing. And I like the idea of the honor, but then you got like Shadur Sanders coming in, and he's honored as a Pro Bowl replacement, and it's just kind of fraudulent at this point. And even like, I like Tyler Huntley, but Tyler Huntley also being a replacement Pro Bowl selection a few years back, it's one of those games where I feel like the Pro Bowl almost has like the least value of any award you can get. At least if you're a quarterback, I would say. I think All-Pro is a better way to distinguish it. And I mean, I think everyone agrees with that, honestly. But the point is, I don't care much about the Pro Bowl. I hope the precision passing is fun because I like watching those. So I'll tune into that. But right before recording this, literally as I was walking to put all my stuff together, I saw Todd Monken actually bailed out on New York, which thank the heavens above, because Harbaugh's already pretty bad enough. Then my boy Todd Monken comes over to New York, and I have to root against him. It's just, but now he's the Browns head coach. So right now we have two open head coaching positions. Sorry, it took me a minute there. I forgot which ones. We have the Raiders and the Cardinals are now the head coaching positions, which it probably is going to get filled up as I'm speaking. But the coaching carousel has been nuts. Just yesterday, I believe, Joe Brady was promoted from offensive coordinator to Bills head coach. And it's not going to be Brian Dable, who is, I think, still waiting on the Raiders head coach position, but he's set in my mind as the Titans offensive coordinator. So my apologies on the last episode about talking about how it's definitely Dable. It's definitely going to be Dable and all that. And just that was just a misfire. I think that was also, I think sources for the coaching carousel need to be more careful in the way they word things. They can't misinterpret rumors and saying he might take it, or he's basically going to take it as actually being hired, because now Todd Monken's actually hired as the Browns coach. Dable, again, all we know about Dable is that it's still rumored that he's probably going to go to Tennessee. But I mean, I don't know. They fired Sean McDermott in Buffalo just to move up Joe Brady, and I like Joe Brady. Joe Brady was, I don't know if he was my first pick, but he was one of my picks to be the Eagles head coach before they got Sirianni all those years ago. I mean, I've gained a little more knowledge about him, and Joe Brady's a good offensive coordinator. I just don't think he's going to be the best head coach for Buffalo. I don't really know what the system he's going to bring to them is, but it just really seems like a weak move, especially with Brian Dable still available and the fact that he didn't really join them. I mean, Dable probably sees like the dysfunction in Buffalo, and it's a little too much for him probably. But I mean, Joe Brady, first-time head coach. Again, I wanted him before Sirianni back in the day, before they hired him after getting rid of Peterson. So maybe it'll work. I mean, little Calvin probably would have loved the move. So, and then another decision in the past few days, maybe it was last week, Mike McCarthy to the Steelers. He's 11-11 in playoff games and 11 10-win seasons. So honestly, this fits right in to the Steelers' mantra and kind of the Mike Tomlin thing. I think that honestly, if you really want to look at resumes, this was like the best guy to step in for Tomlin, just because they kind of have the same track record. They have really good really good regular season consistency and success. But, you know, they're up and down in the playoffs. I just think that it fits, and maybe that's just a diss to Pittsburgh. But and Aaron Rodgers is fond of Mike McCarthy. They won a Super Bowl back in the day, and he was actually talking about him all season. So I guess that's probably why they wanted to inspire not only McCarthy, who's probably just going to stay there for a little while, but also to inspire Rodgers to stay at least a year or two after this. But I think I kind of agree with the belief that he isn't really an inspired hire for the Steelers, and they really should have pivoted to a younger coach. And I mean, again, he only had success in going to one Super Bowl, and he did jack in Dallas, in my opinion. I mean, they had good regular season success. They won an NFC East title or two, but couldn't get past the divisional round, like the Joel Embiid of the NFL. But that's just my thoughts, I guess. But I don't know. And then we got Jesse Minter to the Ravens, which I really do like this hire a lot for Baltimore. And again, this is kind of older news, but just to kind of round out my thoughts for it. I mean, he led top 10 defenses in his Chargers role as a DC, and he's a younger head coach role, so he could be there for a while, and he will focus on ensuring, you know, a great Ravens defense as the offense hopefully does what's actually paid for with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and those receivers. Maybe get another receiver in the bunch. Mark Andrews, hopefully he can come back around, but here's the top 3 candidates open for those last 2 positions. Now we got the Raiders and the Cardinals, and I mean, it's the coaching carousel is definitely kind of slowed down on its axis recently, but the Raiders head coach could go to Brian Dable, but then I still think the best options are, I mean, Clint Kubiak, if I'm saying his name right, Seattle OC. You got to wait till after the Super Bowl, which might be the reason why those 2 positions might not get filled yet, but he would probably be the best available and probably is going to be the most likely to move up. I mean, it's just classic, you know, Super Bowl winning NFC team, offensive coordinator is going to move on kind of deal. But then you got Davis Webb of Denver, who I still kind of hope can come to Philly, and I'll talk about that later as our offensive coordinator. But then you got Nate Scheelhaas, who is just going to be guaranteed a head coaching position in like 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, really no rush on him. But Dable, I think he'll just take the Tennessee job. And I think Clint Kubiak probably goes to the Raiders or Cardinals. But maybe we can kind of poach him to go to Philadelphia. We'll see. I don't know why he would leave Seattle and come to us in the same role. But we'll get a little more onto the Eagles news a little later and talk about their offensive coordinator search. But first, we got to talk some hockey. I mean, just an amazing sport, and there's been a lot of crap going on recently. So first off, pretty cool news with the Oilers, and it's not about McDavid this time. So Oilers are the first team in NHL history to get hat tricks from 2 different defensemen in consecutive games. You have Evan Bouchard in the win over the Capitals and Mattias Ekholm in the win over the Ducks. And the Oilers are also the first team in 25 years to have defensemen score 4 goals in a single period. And I mean, this is just kind of showing of the explosion that the Oilers have had this time of the year. They're tied for 62 points with the Vegas Golden Knights. They're technically tied for first, but they're actually second in the Pacific Division because they're 3 games ahead of Vegas despite being tied with them. The Ducks are 3 points back in that 3rd spot. And I mean, McDavid is still, the points leader, the points trophy guy with 92 right now. He's still leading the league. And even with Evan Bouchard and the Ekholm situation there, the NHL in general has been hat trick happy. The NHL now has had a record-tying 27 hat tricks in the first 26 days of the month, which I think tied March a few years, maybe last year, March, which also had 27 or 26 in the first 26 days of March. And so the Ducks and Oilers are actually leading the way in January with 3 each for this little record. And that's really interesting to me, especially because, I mean, just the Pacific Division. Vegas, Anaheim, who's already been on a heater to start out the year, they went to that slump that we talked about. Then you got the Oilers, who probably are going to find a way to get right back in that Stanley Cup final. It's just so interesting to me that there's just so much scoring going on. I mean, we talked about a few weeks back about how the league is seeing both the tightest year they've ever seen and also the most, they've seen the most blowouts in this year. And it's just really just a season that is so unpredictable. And even the standings, it's so tight right now. Even we're this far in the season and it's still so tight. But a lot of it's just going to be coming from seeing and watching what's going to happen. And I mean, I want to get back to Evan Bouchard, who I think at this point, even after this hat trick kind of brought up his status a little bit again, I think he should be considered one of the biggest snubs of Team Canada. I mean, I can talk forever about how Bedsy should be there, but Bouchard's had 18 points in 12 games since the roster was finalized. Drew Doughty and Colton Parayko haven't really done much in the NHL since that roster was finalized, but my thoughts on Bouchard, and this is really the thoughts of most of the media, he isn't the most reliable defensive player. I mean, despite it being his position, he kind of should be, but he has offense, and he can play an offensive role alongside Cale Makar. He's a defenseman who is over a point per game, which is not usually happening in the NHL. And so I'm just confused as to why they wouldn't even honor him in Team Canada, and especially with this hat trick. I just think that it's telling what happened there, and that he should be on Team Canada. I mean, alongside other snubs, but. And talking about guys who are red hot, we got to talk about 2 teams. 1, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and 2, the Buffalo Sabres. So first, the Tampa Bay Lightning have been insanely hot recently. They're second in the NHL Power Rankings by CBS Sports for this week. They've been 15-1-1 over the last 17 games. Nikita Kucherov has 80 points and snuck in out of nowhere into a 3rd place spot on the points trophy leaderboard behind McDavid and McKinnon. He snuck above Celebrini. And even for the Lightning, goalie Andrei Vasilevsky is leading the NHL with only 2.07 goals against average. And he's second with a .920 save percentage. Kucherov hasn't gone pointless in back-to-back games since early November. And Jake Gunsel, Brandon Hengel, and Anthony Cirelli have led the Lightning on their streak in the past week, and they're just on the rise. And it's time to put Tampa Bay back into the Stanley Cup contention conversations. Now, the Buffalo Sabres alongside the Mammoth and Ducks, probably the biggest just out of nowhere story, and especially right now, they are red hot, just like the sauce. They are now 3rd place in the Atlantic Division, having gone 7-2-1 in the last 10 games. And since December 9th, they've been 19-3-1. I guess a big reason for this has been their 3 goalies that have been standing tall. Ukko-Pekka Lakonen with a .922 save percentage, Alex Lyon .927 save percentage, and Colton Ellis .913 save percentage. And so their defense is just incredible, especially their goaltending. And then on the flip side, you got 8 players scoring 20-plus goals per game on the season. We know obviously Tage Thompson's leading the way, but then you got young stars, Zach Benson, Noah Ostlund, and Josh Duan helping out big time there. And maybe, just maybe, with this red-hot streak and the fact that, they're still in the midst of it, this could be the end of the 14-season playoff drought that's just absolutely out of nowhere. So watch out for those Buffalo Sabres. And to finish out with some surprises, again, Buffalo's a pretty big surprise as it is, but Stuart Skinner on a tear recently. 7 wins in 11 appearances with a .906 save percentage. He's been 7-1 in his goalie record since the Christmas break. And even recently, he helped protect the lead against the Canucks. And he led to a Penguins win with, I think it was 2 game-winning saves that he had against them when they were starting to come back when they were down 3-0. So, Skinner's definitely improved his consistency in the crease, and he could be very important to the future of the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially in their playoff push and their hope that they can get back to a playoff wildcard position this year. So, just look out for Stuart Skinner, man. People can blame him for the fact that the Oilers lost the Stanley Cup those years back, but he's still around, he's still kicking, and Tristan Jarry hasn't really been too crazy for the Oilers. So there's really a conversation kind of brewing there, kind of an uncomfortable conversation brewing there, but we gotta just wait and see. It's Pittsburgh, man. It's Pittsburgh. And just moving a little bit out of Pittsburgh, we're going to go to Philadelphia for the Phanatic Corner. Right now, I got my Uncle Bill's Pancake House in the Jersey Shore. They have a little Phillies themed shirt here. It says pancakes on the back. It's got a pancake stack. So please go visit that place if you've ever been at the Jersey Shore. Uncle Bill's, it's at a few of the shores. So let's talk about these Flyers. Just a wild last 2 games. Really just a manic storm for the Bullies. So first, we're going to start out with a 7-3 away win over the Avalanche with an Owen Tippett hat trick. Denver Barkey also continuing a good start to his career with a score on a power play goal, no less. Bobby Brink comes in, and the Avs ended up tying it 3-3, and we're starting to think that the Avs are just going to keep showing why they're the best team in the league. And then it just all collapsed. Travis Sanheim said that it was a full team effort. And even Mitchkov, who's been dishing assists all game, even all season, hasn't really had a lot of scoring himself. He got one to go in the net, and then even an empty netter at the end of the game. Leading just by a bit in the third, this Avs team was plus 37 in the third period leading into this game, which is really scary at the time when you're watching this game. But then the Flyers just single-handedly made them drop 4 points in that stat, and they ended up finishing a near-perfect road trip out west on the West Coast. And Ersan was really a star in this game. He saved 32 shots, only let in 3 to this explosive Colorado offense. And Tippett excelled on the penalty kill. The PK unit in general was just nuts. They went 4 for 4. It really was a statement win. And Rick Tocchet said that it was a maturity game for us. Just have to be able to turn around that and lead that into a streak. And clearly it was a maturity game because the Flyers ended up dropping a goose egg to the Islanders at home, losing 4-0. Just a horrendous turnaround for a good win after, the Avalanche win. You never win in Colorado, especially not this year. And it just really was a lack of hustle all around for the Flyers. There wasn't really anyone to point out as being like a terrible factor for the team. It's just, there was no effort. Tocchet said specifically that Zegras has had -5 in the last 10 games. He's lacked in points recently. He pointed a finger at him, but Flyers overall, there was just no dangerous shots on goal, no aggression at all, and there was no change by this coaching staff in the power play unit, which started out bad, and it just this coaching staff just needs to make these players better, and they need to develop them to be able to take big wins and turn it into streaks, just like how we did earlier in the year. So it's just, I don't know. The Flyers are now 7 points out of a wild card spot. And the window is to get back in is just closing fast. And it's just, after even a big win like Colorado, I expected that to kind of be the push that would bring us back to, where we were earlier in the year, where we were like top 10 in the league in power rankings. But now it's just, I don't even know if we can get a streak going. And if we lose back and forth, the fact that we took that many overtime losses earlier in the year might have killed us. Definitely. I think we needed an extra point for a majority of those wins. So we really just cannot lose at this point. It's not even just about points and taking points. It's really just all about, we got to just take wins. We got to win the game outright. We got to win the game in shootout. We got to force it to go to shootout. So now that the window is closing fast to get back into the wild card spot, I think that it might genuinely be time to trade. We talked about Robert Thomas. Peterson, that market is still open and there's still a possibility there, but that's just going to be a tough one to get. So I keep hearing rumors about getting Shane Wright. Shane Wright, the projected number 1 overall pick a few years back. Right now, he only has 17 points through 49 games for the Kraken, and he's had a pretty bad drop in ice time. And there is an existent center depth in Seattle. So I think that Wright can be moved easily, especially because they have a good prospect pool building up there. And there's also the question of how was this slump happening for Wright. I think that it could be attributed to his rush development in Seattle, and there's been just too much movement back and forth from the minor leagues to the NHL, then back to the minors, then back to the NHL. So it really is just a question if this is a gamble that the Flyers want to take. But here's my point. He's only 22 years old, and from the things I've read, it says that Wright, he plays desirable, quote-unquote, boring two-way style that the Flyers like. He could be a great number 2 center, not the number 1 guy we're looking for, but Wright is a guy that we might have to add for our center depth and hope that it can be like a reclamation project, just like Zegras was. It could take a guy like Owen Tippett, who, he's been a stud this year. He's been a big X factor for us. I do not want to get rid of him. Or even Bobby Brink, who is good center depth for us. But at the same time, you could just wait if you're the Flyers and hope that Wright's trade value kind of drops if there's really no other bidders in it. And then you can swoop in and get a guy like Shane Wright for basically free. That's my hope. I really want to get him in. I was a big fan of his game. My one buddy who I always talk hockey with, he knows that I was a big Shane Wright guy back in the day. I had him number 1 in my mock drafts. I think that getting Shane Wright, just like how we got Zegras, would be huge for us. Again, it might not be like the tide turner for this season. It might not transform us right away back into the top 3 spot in the Metro, but it would be a push. I think that we got to do something because I don't know if this core is doing it all by themselves. And obviously, Dan Vladar being out is a huge loss for us, and it continues to be, even though Ersan, he really is just our Stuart Skinner. He's coming in, has great games, then just has terrible games right alongside it. So I don't know. I don't know for these Flyers right now, but I'm just praying that this collapse can end soon and that we don't have to worry about this. But please, if we can somehow get Robert Thomas or Shane Wright, that would be incredible. That would be incredible, and I think that it would at least bring some sort of culture here. It would bring some sort of that we are a good destination to be at, that we turn around players, that we can develop players, and maybe, just maybe, we got to look at the coaching. So a lot of questions there for the Flyers. All right, now let's go to these Eagles. The Birds, the offensive coordinator search is just falling down a rabbit hole right now. Bobby Slowick, my guy, is gone. I just said Todd Monken officially took the job for the Browns. Brian Dable's gone. He's going to be the Titans OC or the Raiders head coach. Then you got Zach Robinson gone, a guy that I didn't really want that much, but he was a guy that I did like. And now our OC options are Jim Bob Cooter, Josh Grissard, Jared Johnson, Sean Mannion, Frank Smith, and Matt Nagy. What are we doing here in Philadelphia? What is going on in Philadelphia? Why are these our options after us being arguably the most attractive position in sports to open up for? It's just, it makes no sense. I have a lot of takes on this, a lot of conflicting takes, and even just the media has conflicting takes on this. I'm seeing a lot of bring back Frank Reich. I think his resume is good with the Eagles. He's helped develop younger mobile quarterbacks like Andrew Luck, like Carson Wentz. And he can make sure that Hurts doesn't fall off a cliff just because of how many offensive coordinators he's been blowing through. But I also believe that Frank Reich, honestly, he's old enough and he's had enough unsuccessful head coaching jobs that he might be a Vic Fangio, where he's going to just stay until he retires or until he's just done with this. And he has a good relationship with Sirianni. He could be a mainstay for us. I would like a guy like Frank Reich to come back. I think if you really want to get into the numbers, you really want to get into what really fits best, especially if you want to develop the offense around Jalen Hurts, that would probably be Jared Johnson. CJ Stroud didn't look too good this past season overall, but he helped develop him, and he has a pre-existing relationship with Hurts. And again, I wanted him before we got Kellen Moore, so I would definitely take Jared Johnson. I'm sure not a lot of people would agree with me there, despite the fact that he might have to get better at play calling in general. He might have to learn how to do that, but there's the relationship there, and there's definitely the chemistry there. I don't want a guy like Jim Bob Cooter. I don't want Matt Nagy, but you got two guys that I do think are intriguing. And again, both of them are probably worst case scenarios, but still, Sean Mannion is intriguing, young talent. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's been an offensive consultant in Green Bay. He's worked closely with Jordan Love and the rising star Malik Willis. So I wouldn't mind getting a guy like Sean Mannion, at least getting him on the staff somewhere. That would be pretty cool. Maybe not as our OC, but it would be an experiment, but just not one that I'm willing to take with the talent that we have. And then you got Josh Grizzard, who I'm actually starting to warm up to. And there's a lot of pros and cons with him, but maybe it's just worth the risk. Grizzard, he has exposure to working under the Shanahan-McVay coaching tree, and he has exposure to those high level of offenses, which is always a great thing to have. But it also means that you're probably going to be a head coaching candidate eventually, but probably not Grizzard. He's a good pass game architect. When he was the passing game coordinator in 2024 for the Tampa Bay Bucks, they ranked third in the league in passing yards, and they had good, strong structural traits, just like, motion, formation, variation, and condensed splits to create leverage in the intermediate and deep areas of the field. This would be a guy that would allow Hurts to use his deep ball, and he's really just a risk taker. That's Grizzard's whole thing. But, again, risk taker, that's his whole thing. He overused Baker Mayfield's arm last year as the OC for the Bucks, and they didn't really have the best season. They had a really bad collapse with Grizzard calling plays. So maybe it's just not the best decision, but if he's really our last option, I would gladly take him. So I'd probably say Jared Johnson, number 1, Josh Grizzard, number 2, Frank Reich, 3, then Sean Mannion, as a very, very, very big, long shot 4, but we went from Todd Monken to Bobby Slowick to Jared Johnson to Josh Grizzard. So just give us something good. Just let us have something good, please. Just hire Chad Morris at this point. Hire Dabo. Just bring someone in for Philly, because this is getting really annoying, and I'm tired of these really good candidates moving in, then moving out, then people not being attracted to the Philly job. How much of it is Sirianni? That's not a conversation I'm really even willing to have right now. I just need us to have an offensive coordinator soon and to not pick Jim Bob Cooter. If they pick Jim Bob Cooter, then I'll be watching every game of the Phillies this year, which I probably won't be. So, now the Sixers, just like the Flyers, an up and down week for them. They had a terrible loss to the Hornets, 130-93. There was no Joel, no PG for the first time in a minute, which, they have to rest at some point. But, Maxey, 6.6 assists. What are we doing? VJ was putting up tour date shooting with 2 and 11. So that's just, I don't even know what to say about that. I guess McCain had a decent game, but that was pretty cool. And then last night, they routed the Bucks 139-122. It was probably actually one of the Sixers' best games as a team, and the way they structured and everything. Paul George comes in, drops 32 in his return, as well as having 9 threes, just vintage PG-13 stuff. Joel puts up 29 points himself and 9 rebounds, and he actually had a really, really good start to the game, I think with 18, either through the first quarter or in the first half. So, again, the big man's coming back slowly. He caught a lob, which was really awesome to see. And then Tyrese Maxey turned his game around, had 22 points. And even Jared McCain, back out there having early minutes with Quinn Grimes being out, had 17 points on 5 of 6 shooting. He's starting to inch his way back into the lineup and getting back into his rhythm. And I think that we still should aim to keep him for the foreseeable future, but he's just really been a non-factor for us so far. So we'll have to see with Jared McCain. I really don't want him to be gone or be a one-and-done guy. I mean, again, he was shining on a team that wasn't good last year, and they had all these injuries last year, so maybe it was that. But I also think that the kid just brings so much chemistry, brings so much joy alongside Maxey for these Sixers. So I really hope that we do try to develop him a little further. I just don't know how many times you can move him back to the Blue Coats and hope that works, because I just don't know. I would say the Sixers are still in a good spot after this Bucks win. They showed what they can do. They're still in a good spot. It's still a wide open East, and they aren't really daring to be too aggressive in the trade market, besides maybe moving Andre Drummond. But please, for the love of God, keep Kelly Oubre for the remainder of the season. He helps bring younger players in Philly along, like VJ Adembona. He can be a great veteran presence to them due to his journeyman role in the NBA. And I really think that the Sixers, if they really want to trade and get another rotation guy, they got to look to trade Gordon, Quentin Grimes, Andre Drummond. Kyle Lowry can just retire and become a coach. I don't know. Just please keep Oubre. I think that the untouchables for the Sixers are definitely, Joel, PG's been pretty good this year. Maxey, VJ, obviously, you just don't even think about it. And then Oubre, I think that if you have to trade McCain to get a good deal, I think that the possibility is there. Again, if like a Giannis starts knocking on our door, then take Drummond, McCain, Grimes, and maybe Oubre. But like, if we're not talking Giannis, we're not talking like Cat, like what's the point? I don't even want Cat. I'm just listing them out there. So again, not the most, kind of just a tired segment at this point. I'm kind of tired of these teams being up and down. And I'm really tired of the Eagles doing nothing in their coaching search. And just please don't give me Jim Bob Cooter. That's all I ask. Moving on to the Clemson Corner, there's a few things to talk about here. We're going to go into the schedule, namely. But I want to talk about the Luke Fraley situation a little further. He's officially at Ole Miss now. And Dabo Swinney has gone scorched earth when it comes to this debacle. He accused Ole Miss coach Pete Golding of tampering. He put out the information of the text that Fraley got, talking about, hey, congrats on going to Clemson, but what's your buyout? And then Fraley was like, Dabo felt sympathy for Fraley, and I don't really know how much I blame him over Pete Golding, but I just don't think that you can be mad at the Lane Kiffin situation and think that this is a good idea for college sports. And it really just goes back to the whole disgusting NIL thing and how transfers are just happening willy-nilly. And it's just really ruined the amateurism, and it's really just ruined the whole thing. It really has made college sports one big pro-am league and really one big pro-am situation. I saw a Clemson Insider article, I believe. I didn't read into it, but I saw the headline saying that if they're going to make a commissioner for college football and college sports, they should make Dabo the first commissioner, because he'll have no business dealing with all this NIL stuff. And it's funny. But my favorite quote was that Dabo said that this whole Fraley thing was like having an affair on your honeymoon, because he already met the coaches, he was already on classes, he was already enrolled. It's an overblown situation at this point, and it's one of those things that it's almost just like if there's no action you can do. Again, I hope that Clemson stepping up and doing something with it will lead to, gates being opened, or I guess gates being closed for NIL and them actually controlling it. I think that it's really just a big money laundering scheme, but there's a lot of thoughts on that. But the most exciting thing for Clemson would probably be the fact that we finally got our schedule released, because the ACC was releasing schedules, And I'm going to make my very, 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 very way too early predictions for this 2026 Clemson football season, with the quarterback situation still not fully figured out, coaching still being figured out and everything, and other teams still doing their thing with the transfer portal and everything. So this will be our schedule release and my very, very early predictions. So we're going to open at LSU for week 1. And I think this could be a tricky one and a crazy home crowd. Plus, it's the debut of Lane Kiffin, and it's also the debut of Chad Morris for us. And LSU just has an incredible transfer class coming in, not only in players, but also coaching staff under Kiffin. And I think this is the same situation as 2025. If you win this game, you probably go undefeated. But if you lose this game, it's going to be dysfunction. I really did think that even though our team wasn't amazing this past season, that if we won that LSU game, it just would have set the tone, and it just would have been a much better year. So I think that this is going to be a loss for us. I think we're 0-1 out of LSU, out of that Death Valley. Georgia Southern week 2, it's a Sun Belt opponent. I think that it could either be our natty run continuing or the Troy wake-up call that we usually have every year. So I think this is a win, 1-1. It might be a dirty win, but I don't know. UNC. Belichick does not look like the future for UNC, and there's 29 players who left the program. It's just too much of a turnaround and a project for the Super Bowl winning coach to handle for the third week. So I think that's going to be a win. And I think we're going to be standing at 2-1 after the first 3 weeks. And I want to take a little second because I just realized I forgot to gloss over this in the NFL discussion, and that's Bill Belichick not being named a first ballot Hall of Famer in his first year of eligibility, which is just the most ridiculous thing to me. It really is like not inducting Phil Jackson into the Hall of Fame his first year. This is a guy that he is a championship winner. Yeah, you could say it's all Brady. Yeah, you could say that the whole Deflategate, Spygate thing happened, but it's just Bill Belichick is an amazing coach, and there's just no. Even though he probably can't build a college football program. It's so much different, but that's just, I don't know. I think that's just the most ridiculous thing. I saw this one guy on Twitter who was like, everyone that voted against Belichick should release themselves. And I think they should. I think we should see their votes, because I think they're holding grudges against Belichick. And I think it's one of those things that I don't even like the Patriots. I'm the first one to hate on the Patriots. But Bill Belichick is the definition of Hall of Fame coach. He might not be the best, I guess, in terms of skill, in terms of objectivity, but he has the accolades and resume to back it up. And he built the culture there in New England. I know you can make a point that there isn't a lot of success outside of Tom Brady, but it's Bill Belichick, man. You can't deny Bill Belichick being in the Hall of Fame. I think it's bewildering that he isn't in the Hall of Fame, but I mean, maybe it's just because that 1 year at UNC. Maybe that's why he's not in the Hall of Fame. In that case, I agree with their judgments. So we're 2-1 going into Cal, and we're rushing to the West Coast to play this game. It might be a Friday game, and they have a good young quarterback, but I just think that we're going to win over Cal. We're going to keep moving. I think we're going to be at 3-1. Then we got Miami. I expect a loss. They're going to have Darian Mensah, Mark Fletcher, Malachi Toney, who just looked like a dog in the championship. They're just a juggernaut team. They might go back to the championship, especially with Mensah at the helm and not Carson Beck. So I think that's a loss, 3-2. Charleston Southern, that's a win, 4-2. And then we go to Virginia Tech. James Franklin in his first year. It's going to be the James Franklin show. They got 27 transfers coming in. It'll be an away game. We're going to be running into Ethan Grunkmeyer again. The game really could set the tone for the ACC championship push, and I think the Tigers will pull it out, but I really just think it depends on how Franklin's program is coming along his first season, especially with this time of the season usually being the telling sign of which teams are actually good, which teams are not. I think we get the win here. I think we move to 5-2. And then we go to Florida State the next week. And this team has brought in 23 transfers. They're going to have Ashton Daniels, Quintrevion Wisner. I just don't think that we're going to be able to come in and beat a motivated, rebuilding Florida State team in Doak Campbell Stadium on Halloween, mind you. I think this is going to be a loss 5-3. And then we got, so right now we're sitting at 5-3. The bowl game odds are just, I don't know. We got to just keep moving. I guess we have 2 ACC losses at this point. We have the LSU lost. We're in a kind of sticky situation here. But then we got Syracuse next game. I think this is definitely a trap game again. I think this is one that could really end our season just like it did last year. But I think that we get it. We bounce back from last year. We get a win there, and now we're 6-3. Georgia Tech, it's a new look Yellow Jackets. They have Mendoza Jr. on the team, but this is just where, this is the point of the season where Clemson's on their streak. It's about to enter November, and they're playing their best football to get the year out in classic Dabo fashion. We just can't lose, even if we're not the best team. I think we win 7-3. Then we go to Duke, and they lost Darian Mensah, and their offensive spark is going to be too big of a loss for this fading Duke offense, especially against a hopefully amazing new look defense by Clemson that's built solely through transfer portal. If Luke Frelly was here, this would have been a more of a guaranteed win. But I mean, Duke will also have one of the best defenses in the ACC. I mean, they won the ACC championship for a reason, despite the ACC kind of sucking last year. So this will be a defensive battle, in my opinion. But I think that this is a win 8-3. And then we finish the year out against South Carolina, as per usual, the Palmetto Bowl. And I mean, I get they're bringing everyone back, and they had an all-right portal, but I don't know. They have Kendon Briles at OC now, but I'm a Clemson fan. I go to Clemson. I'm not going to pick them ever over Clemson or even think about picking them. So unless they're going undefeated in that year in that SEC, I think they're going to have a 2025 Clemson-type season, trying to run it all back. And Clemson owns the state. They'll always own the state. I mean, you can say it once, you can say it again. Everyone that goes to the University of South Carolina is only there because they didn't get accepted into Clemson. So that's from a tweet. That's not from me. So I think this is a win. I think we finish the year 9-3, and then we await either college football playoff potential, maybe, probably not likely, with a 9-3 record, or a pretty tasty Pop-Tart Bowl game. So that's my way too early prediction on Clemson football. I think that we go 9-3, and yeah, so there's that, and that's my prediction right now as of 12:07 p.m., January 28th, 2026. We'll see what happens come August. Lastly, I want to talk about Clemson basketball. Just a brief little overview of what they're at. They're back at number 22 on the poll, and they still boast a fairly good net ranking and resume. They have 3 losses in Quad 1 and 1 loss in Quad 2, but they're also going to be seeking to go 8-1 in Quad 2 with a win over Pitt. No losses in Quad 3 or 4, which is really important. In my opinion, the Tigers are still losing to all the teams that they actually need to lose to, or that they're expected to lose to, and or the teams that are just better than them. So they're losing games they can lose. They're still holding number 31 overall in net ranking. So the Tigers are still there. Brad Brunell's still doing his thing. And despite that bad loss recently to NC State, I think the Tigers will be just fine. I think that it just hopefully doesn't take a McNeese collapse to see what happened there. So overall, just, I don't know, up and down, kind of pessimistic episode for the Pursuit, but I thank you all for watching as usual. And I guess to start out, my shout outs: go Tigers, hopefully go Flyers, go Phils, because the Eagles are going to do nothing, and go Sixers. So that's it. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next week.